Welcome everyone to our March 19th pre-meeting. Starting with old business, formal updates. Not sure we have any real updates, it's more of a long-standing item, but I did get an interest from another community member that's interested in serving. We have something, so reach out, send you the name,
Yes,
and
I've got 5 names.
5 names. Okay, perfect. We're almost at 7.
Yeah.
So moves on.
Edie, I've had some people I've talked to and I've even shown them the write-up that we did in the spring newsletter. And a couple people said, well, this seems like an awful lot. I said, I always tell people the premise is we're trying to generate revenue without raising property tax. That's how I start the discussion. Well, what are you going to do? And we get down the bullet points. Well, that's not very much for the effort that's probably involved. And I said, well, there's other benefits as well. And I think there's other benefits, more flexibility in the way we can do other things. And we've talked about that. We've never really taken that step, I think, and defined we focused on the revenue side of it. We didn't focus on the intrinsic other benefits that might just be easier operation of government. And I only bring it up because it may help sell it to people.
And clarify things, right?
Yeah.
I bet that's a good idea. So maybe in the document, we can start adding those things as we find them.
And I don't have a list even in my head yet, but maybe it's worth talking to, in fact, the one guy I was talking to was a guy from the Canlis, and he was a previous council person. And he wasn't actually aware that they had him because he was around much after, but he said it still doesn't sound like, he couldn't help us tell if it was easier to operate the government because he wasn't there prior to them adopting it. So I guess what would be interesting would be to ask somebody that made the change, the things that, in addition to the monetary side of it, what other benefits did they really see on the horizon? I don't think we really talked about that a lot.
No, you're right. We've been so focused on the financial component of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the financial component, wasn't there something about stormwater and then the state takes over certain?
Well, the PennDOT roads.
That's part of the benefit, yes, that PennDOT is taking a stance based on a case that anything under the surface is the municipality's property, even if PennDOT installed it.
Only if you're a borough.
Only if you're a borough.
Only if you're a
Which
borough.
that impacts us. So in one case so far, PennDOT has required that we replace the pipes and catch basins on Reese Run Road that were installed by PennDOT because they were failing. So we had to absorb the cost to do that.
And we'd apply a permit.
We applied for a permit from PennDOT and get follow PennDOT specs and have PennDOT inspect our work
But
because
if
their
we are
stuff
a formal
failed.
charter, then they take care of all that.
PennDOT would do their own storm work on that.
The same as they do with every other municipality except the borough. PennDOT does that work. But we're a borough and because
Old opinion.
borough, yeah, it talked about municipalities, but it didn't say borough specifically. It was, they take that, well, a borough has to pay for it.
I think it was written something like cities and townships. And they said, well, you're a borough, you're not a city or a township. It listed a couple types of municipalities, and borough wasn't one of them. So by virtue of the fact they didn't list it, that must mean that we don't have.
Right, they
to
meant
do
to exclude it.
The impact so far to us has been in the tens of thousands of dollars, but with all of these state roads we have, it could be substantially more if they recommend it for all of them.
So that would be a great thing to quantify as part of our update to the renewal charter.
How many miles of
Yeah,
storm sewer.
yeah, an
pipes and
estimate of
catch
how much
basins we
money
have on state
we would
roads.
have to actually pay to replace all of that. Yeah, that would be really good.
We have 10 or 11 roads that are PennDOT roads. We can probably go down and look at how many catch basins.
Oh, sure, we'll do that.
We have consistently talked to our state reps and senators about this, and they say they hear it from all the boroughs, but they never do anything, so.
So this is one avenue where we can actually take action as a borough to shift the burden back to PennDOT.
And control our own,
PennDOT, right?
control our own destiny instead of have PennDOT spring it on us.
Sometimes they take care of it themselves. When they did the work on Rochester Road, they took care of the pipes that needed replacing the catch basins because they were doing that upgrade. But if a pipe or catch basin fails and it's not on their schedule, it falls on us. And at some point, they may come back and say, if we're gonna repave a road, we first have to replace the pipes and then we'll repave. We could do that.
which could become substantially costly
Oh, absolutely.
in the future.
So we do need to have a few talking points of things that are not just financially driven, if such reasons exist.
Yeah, if we can come up with them, I'd like, maybe it's a matter of call, it'd be interesting to talk to somebody that made the switch recently.
Yeah.
To see if there was anything other than the monetary benefit, potentially, other sources of revenue, but that's obviously, we've already identified several of those, but I'd like to have some more non-monetary.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't heard even people that we've spoken to from other municipalities and stuff that we've read. I haven't seen anything jump out that says this is a reason to do it other than financial. I mean,
We say it's gonna simplify operations, but if we do want to make any changes to that, we do have to go to a voter referendum, so that's, so making amendments to that, while we can do it, could be more cumbersome than we have under the current, following the state system.
and things seem to be running fairly smoothly. I mean, it's not like we need to restructure anything
Right.
that's jumping to mind immediately, but, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And just one thing for the financial, it might seem small, but remember, these are long-term things, right? So the Canlis, I and all of them did this in the early '70s. They're now reaping the benefits 50 years later, 40 years later. So, you know, when I talk to people, I do tell them, this is not something that anybody that's currently serving benefit from or see. This is more of a long-term for the viability of the borough. Okay, anything else in the room? Okay,
One second.
yeah.
Because I always have like some friends or neighbors that come to me and ask, how much it will cost me and will borrow to just like first like to complete this home rule and just like searching like just like how much it will cost the borrow to switch to the home rule chart or something. What will be the cost? And can we just like because they ask the answer.
The monetary cost would mostly be legal fees. And there would be a volunteer component. Obviously, it's people's time. But actual out-of-pocket money, it's basically
Yeah,
rewriting the charter, but we'll be taking probably from others and just piecemealing it together. So
Right.
and, yeah, I mean, I think having an advertising requirement, advertise your meetings, that means if there's a one public hearing during the process.
Yeah, we decided not to do the consultant. which
And
was
then the
big
consultant,
thing.
Yeah, I know,
not having
and,
that change.
because people ask me like, okay, and I know that they borrow facing some financial issue and, but since if you want to like switch and home road chart and we were doing so many things and it won't cost money, right? And so we have like some kind of
Legal fees and everything, right? $1,000.
We haven't. We only have a Lodestar because we haven't done one, because we have Adams and so.
That is probably something, especially when you do the public hearing, that we should easily have an answer for.
we can ask around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
there's some
basically
things.
the trade, we're gonna trade this money to get this. home rule
Yeah, but
charter.
people are gonna wanna know a dollar figure.
Well, that's what I meant,
Ballpark.
exactly, like to
Pretty
the,
low, medium, high.
Yeah, we can give them that, I think, based on, I mean, we listed out in the article, in the newsletter, some potential stuff, and most of them are gonna be fairly nominal, other than legal fees. But I think that's something we could at least give them a very loose estimate on.
yeah, kind of like, because then when people come to us, ask for like, how much it costs and they cannot tell them, oh yeah, we are still,
I think you can tell for sure it's less than what the consulting firm wanted, 100,000. I don't think it would cost. Not to put you on the spot. I don't think legal fees would be that high.
So this is some second thing, and according to some and neighbors, they ask, okay, looks like the borrow when or switch to the home rule chart and they will have more kind of like freedom, right? To charge, and like put a charge on the residents or something like that. So how could we control like this kind of thing, the freedom to, charge the residents is will be kind of controlled, like controlled or something like
Check
that.
and balance kind of thing.
Yeah, just something like that. How to manage it?
I
So
think it's
it
called
makes
an
a-
election.
So, and, well, actually, and for example, if Borough and, or like a home road chart and come up with some new fee, and how to, just like, give like the community, time or something like that, to, deal with this kind of thing, and.
But I don't think it gives us the ability to create fees out of thin air.
It has to be existing, if I'm not mistaken. We,
Yeah.
Borough can't,
Stormwater.
stormwater would be the only
Yeah,
one.
something like that,
But that's a fee that
Yeah, no
others
problem.
have. We just wouldn't have to create an authority, so we'd save money in that process.
But we're not really clear on whether we could actually impose a stormwater fee. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, the case that's challenging, it is a home rule municipality that imposed it, but imposed it on a tax exempt entity, part of the state higher education system, and didn't have an exception or otherwise, so big push for a stormwater fee in general, that it should apply to nonprofits and other items that contribute stormwater to the situation, but are tax exempt for real estate purposes. Categorized as a fee, but to them, Commonwealth Court said, no, it's a tax, therefore you can't do it to them. So that whole concept sort of strikes down a lot of the benefit of the stormwater fee, because although it applies to individual houses that are already taxable, it's just another fee you get paid one time a year. Having it apply to tax exempt entities with large parking lots, large stormwater issues, being questioned now in the Supreme Court. So, with that kind of a thing, there's not an express authorization for a stormwater fee in the borough code. The boroughs are able to do it. Aside, we are able to create a stormwater authority, which looked at a separate entity that gets created. But I don't know, I mean, in terms of other types of limitations where you are, it's in the book that Brian sent around or so, we are limited now by both borough code in terms of essentially our millage rate, everything else, and local tax enabling act, which is EIT, LST, real estate transfer tax, and all that has. If you have it, it can only be up to this amount. In some instances, those caps are removed.
We're only like 1/20th of what we could charge as far as.
Oh, yeah, millage.
I mean, we're not even close to a ceiling on.
No.
Would you say 25 or 30?
30, I think, and then there's a bunch of exceptions for debt service. You could do a fire tax portion of that, so, yeah, there are some communities that are butting against that because of complete decline in property values. Their millage rate.
So the nonprofits, what I think I just said, the nonprofits or the tax exempt property can't, even if we were a home rule, we couldn't assess the stormwater fee against them. Is that what, was that for all of them, or is that only? for the
Right
state-
now,
state?
the case on the limited was a, not only just tax exempt, but a tax immune entity. It was a creature of the Commonwealth. And so, but the underlying, analysis that Judge Wojcik in the Commonwealth Court did was, well, this is a tax, and therefore they're tax immune, you can't apply to it. Somebody's tax exempt, if you're saying this is a tax, doesn't matter who's it's applied to, so that's why it's on further review.
But the communities that have stormwater fees, I believe, are charging it to nonprofits like churches.
I believe Hampton is right. Hampton is from other fee.
They're still doing it, and there's still litigation over, PWSA has one, and the cemeteries sued them, and
And I think when people inevitably ask that question, we just have to say, honestly, that's a possibility, that's, whereas with the current form of government we have, council could keep raising property taxes, so hopefully, like Reach said, elections is a check on that. But yeah, if we became a home rule charter, yes, realistically, some of those taxes could go sky high.
Well, if you do not, I mean, one way to look at it, a flip side approach, I mean, if you are messaging this, if you do not pursue home rule or investigate home rule as an option, the property taxes will go up. That is the only revenue, that is the only source of revenue that the borough has to increase revenue, increase fees, increase money coming into the borough. This provides alternatives, so it's either you continue raising villages, which we have obligations, we are funding our police, other, other pension obligations that we have and staff, or run like a class A community, it costs money. And it's either you go for an alternative or you have to just continue raising millage.
But I think we need to make clear to people that, yes, that is a possibility. Hopefully,
Yeah,
your elected officials who know who they are in the future won't do that, but that is one of the possibilities.
Mathematically, from my understanding, just like if we use a home rule and chart, and we can somehow charge the non-profit like business the fee, and somehow that can cover the expense. But if we only increase like the property and the tax, we put a burden on the residents. So hopefully that is the way, and hope we can, and talk to all, residents, because people will be curious and about like, okay, you want to do that, and why do I need to pay more? And whether it's from the tax or from the fee, and but the money will come from them, right? So, and what we are doing that right now is just like we're trying to get more revenue, not only like kind of from residents, also from other, resource. So, and we hope that can help and like with the financial situation.
yeah, less reliant on residents.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That-
Spread
residents,
out that
exactly.
financial cost a little bit more.
Yeah, can we also like update when we update information, and we can also like input some information that is into the update, just like because and the people want to know and whether they need to pay more. And pay like pay some fee like that, and they don't want to pay or something like that. So we can tell them like somehow this can help, helping and lower the payment that they need to make, to make the situation.
Would be paying lower as if home rule is in place, it would pay lower than had they not had it in place.
Yeah.
That's,
Something like that.
that is, yeah, that is a fact, because again, without home rule, we were focusing on the resident.
Yeah.
To fund everything.
Because most people, when they talk to me, more like they talk about the financial, and they really, and they're not that interested in some other things. They just want to know and whether they need to pay more, or whether the borough has a reason to, impose like a fee on them and do whatever, the borough wants to do. And so it's something like that they care about. So we really need to somehow, and address this concern, help people, and what we're trying to do is just to get more money and from other resources and in addition to the residents. Or something like that, can help with the, situation. Because I'm trying to, answer the question somehow, at that time, I was not that clear,
And we're talking about a public hearing. Is it a hearing?
Public meeting.
Meeting, thank you.
Like an open
I
house.
think hearing
Yeah.
is the right word. At the June regular meeting, right?
That could be a good time to do this if everyone's on board.
You got
Well, we
before
talked
the
about,
festival?
introducing the ordinance at the June regular meeting for enactment in July, keep with the, have to get it to them 13 Tuesdays in advance. But yeah, the idea was to have more of a, rather than just read the title and that's it, more explanation or PowerPoint or something, maybe answer questions if you need to. More than our typical introduction of them.
That was at the June regular meeting.
I believe that. was
Okay,
it.
is that before the festival on the park?
Yes.
Okay. And I do think
Just barely.
very strongly that we should answer questions. I know generally we don't in these types of situations,
Yeah.
but I think absolutely we should.
And if you have any, like, my HOA asked me to come to their quarterly meeting to talk about this, like 5-10 minutes, so if you'll, if you have an HOA or anything, I mean, offer to do that, this is helpful. The more you can answer questions, this is more of you to learn about it too, so. Anything else on roll or? Okay, cool, on to new business, reviewing the agenda, anything for chattering?
No, we have the proclamation at the beginning. I'm not sure if anybody, executive director will be here from the library, but usually mayor, you're gonna read through it. Then we'll do the motion and presentation.
For reading.
Not reading. Appropriate for library. In terms of, we will announce the executive sessions, but on the back, you'll see. Now, there's always sort of a debate or discussion. Do you need to read every single, material and who got the, bid award through SHACOG? Because we have a requirement now to post an agenda that is available. I'm fine. Whoever reads the motion, rather than reading every name and town, just says as stated on posted agenda. Unless there are any changes or striking anybody or anything. We've done all. Respect to everything else was pretty much from the last meeting. Motion 5 is the Latera / Cardinal Ridge motion. In terms of other updates, for the original plan, before any of these revisions, council remember, as part of the assignment assumption agreement, went from Red Rocks Group or so, their original approval to Latera, Red Rocks Group, and not signed a development agreement or posted a bench security. So there was nothing to transfer to them with respect to that. So in December, we did do a motion and approve a development agreement based on construction cost estimates under that original plan. Provided it, but I think last week or so, the developer did sign it, has delivered it with the financial security and gave a copy of a recording plan. But when Tim, Sean, and I reviewed it and looked at it, I said, hey, wait, this is the one from even earlier with the original stormwater facility, the underground facility. So we're not prepared to sign that just yet. And all of this was, so that the developer could get some earth moving, get a grading permit as part of it to do the prep site work, recognizing that he still has this revision under consideration. Wants to talk now, but as we talked about at the work session, you're within the 90 days for an action or deemed approval or a need for an extension. Tim did send an email to the developer, letting him know there were going to be some questions and they should have their designer / engineer here tonight. So we have that ability to do so. If there are sort of representations or promises made, I'll do this, that, or the other thing. We do have the ability, or council does have the ability to amend the motion as written. Because right now the conditions are Tim's staff report and Glenn Smith report, which is typical. But if there's something else that comes up and satisfied, it's probably best to include that in the motion. Or if it is tabled, Tim can update his staff report if more plans are given. It does not sound like we're talking about bouncing them back to the planning commission. It would stay with council. The planning commission's already made their. And trying to remember which planning commission. Somebody doesn't have a meeting this month. It was you two as well. I think the Lakers.
The planning commission didn't.
Yeah, yesterday.
Last night.
Well, on this motion, Tim did send out an email with some, taking a look at, such Article 1900 and different different design criteria and things. And I guess what I'm wondering, Tim, is does a lot of those final details will be presented, I'm assuming, when they come in to obtain a building permit.
But everything should be settled by then. I shouldn't have to. That's not at my discretion, that's the council.
Well, that was gonna be my question. Normally, some of these things that you highlighted that haven't been presented yet, is that common that they're not presented yet, or is this something that?
Well, my comment on that is that I don't feel that it was meeting the spirit of the ordinance. Whether you guys feel that or not, I don't know, but this is at your discretion, not at mine, and, you know, I certainly don't want that discussion.
I looked back, Tom, addressing your comments, I looked back at some previous submissions, and it's not common. It's not common for the planning commission to send something to us that we don't call clean.
We have a lot of new people on the planning, and I'm not sure if they are the understanding of.
I think maybe we need to communicate that. I would not, in my opinion, I wouldn't call this a clean submission.
Well, that answers the question, and some of these things that you pointed out actually should be here by this point of the approval.
Well, I mean, planning commission was okay with the design. I think the design's weak, that's my opinion. Your guys' opinion from there.
Well, and it's confusing too, because you can't tell, are they going to have some two levels in there, or are they not?
Well, and they didn't give us over, like, it was a surprise that they brought up the planning commission meeting that they're gonna have, you know, decks and sunrooms and things like that. They didn't show any of that. We didn't know
How's
anything
that
about
gonna
that.
work
with the
with
planning
the
commission. So
50% grade?
we don't know what they're proposing.
And my only concern, you know, we don't judge applications based on the spirit or potential intent, beyond the text of the ordinance. So as Tim has highlighted some provisions, like, you know, 360, the design, you know, has to be on all four sides, things like that, or can be done.
This ordinance, personally, I think we've stretched the law on it. But, you know, no one's balked at it yet. And a lot of the stuff that came in under it actually was in PRDs, so they weren't subject to it. So, you know, right now we're in a position where, you know, the ordinance should prevail, but, you know, I think it does need to be with the people that live in the borough here making the decision of what they want, rather than me as the zoning officer trying to come up with what I think is right.
Tim, in comparison to like, the most recent, subdivision, I guess, that's been built in the borough, I'm guessing Deerfield's probably comparable. I don't know if anything else new is.
Yeah, Deerfield didn't have the requirements because they weren't multifamily. So
Oh,
because this
okay,
is
all right.
multifamily, this is what drives this section of the
Okay.
ordinance.
Understood. Is there a recent family in the borough? Has there been one?
Everyone's single family. I mean, there's, I mean, Miranda couldn't make it down where the landscaping place
Yes.
was. So
Right.
they couldn't make the designs.
Okay.
They couldn't meet the requirements there with single families. You know, we had a couple over there, like Ridge Forest, for example, and Fields of Nicholson, but they were both PRDs, so they can vary from the ordinance.
Okay, all right, understood.
I mean, I think you've got enough time. There is questions for more details on particularly final grade or other specific ordinance provisions. Design all four sides, that's it, but you know, we don't get into aesthetics any otherwise in terms of color schemes or, we, as Tim said, that ordinance did toe the line, got into it, you know, you can do that if you have incentives on the other side, you know, you meet this design criteria, you get increased density, something like that, not just because we have this issue of somebody's got to make a determination.
And he
We
got
have
some favors here that other people didn't have. So, you know, we changed the ordinance for him, so I think the incentive was there. The problem is we gave away the trophy, can use it as a hammer. But, you know, I mean, this shouldn't hold them up any because they do have an approval and they can get in and start digging. It's just, now we're struggling with, what site plan.
So how do we want to, in terms of, our process, procedure, otherwise, I mean, we typically just go through the motion, read it, make it seconded, maybe ask them a question or two. We can do that here, have it as written. Uday, you can ask Tim to discuss it some more and then have Tim to lead the discussion, or council, when they pull up. And the developer and the engineer, and have them do an explanation. You can just pepper them with questions or otherwise.
The other thing is there are some loose ends there, and I added them to my document that I sent you too. Just regarding of who's responsible for acceptance of the street and stuff like that, because initially that was all gonna be kept on the developer's side because they were building, rental units. So they were just gonna do that. They were gonna get us involved, but I don't think that this developer has any intent to perpetually, maintain a street and.
I think it's more dedicated on the lanes. I June did.
But I mean, and then the storm source too, because we told, up front we said that we don't want the facility, but we're like storm source, so that would be another capture. Let's get that somehow documented. And how things move forward with maintenance. The maintenance of the exterior of the buildings, who's gonna take care of that? Who's gonna, who's gonna be responsible for maintaining the private storm source that they will record after they built the buildings? Things like that were just loose ends that got lost because we went from one development type to another development. That's just gonna be loose ends again a year from now.
Is that get incorporated into a final development agreement that Borough and then sign off on the teeth of it, like this?
Probably be more incorporated in their HOA, and we should just make sure that somebody's taking care of that.
Is that how down to the detail we are? Like, we're gonna say, give us your HOA plan then?
We have, we've reviewed them in the past, and typically our only comments are with respect to enforcement. If it's a private, or it's gonna be, the stormwater pond is gonna be operated by the homeowners association after the developer dedicates them, we put in language that says, and the borough can come in and enforce and, make and assess people or something like that. But our development agreements are up to the point of dedication and acceptance. So it covers the amount of time when they're doing the installations, like when we're doing the inspections, when we have the bond and we're releasing it. So it is not a long-term commitment.
Developer goes away, he's done.
Yeah, he's
We don't
done.
have anybody's hand to hold after that.
No, and we'll get maintenance for 18 months at 15% of the cost if it's a dedicated road, just so we hold their feet there. But after that, they're done. They're sort of gone, and whatever they left behind. And homeowners associations, sometimes they really work, sometimes they just go away, and
But at least we have
don't
somebody's
want-
feet to hold to the fire if they have this responsibility of the homeowners association.
I think that's one of the
We don't-
updated.
But
But
if
it
you
needs
don't
to be
mention
clear.
that, then there's,
Yeah.
no place to go, everything's great.
I think you have to be careful then about the HOA, and maybe we're dealing with the plans, but enforcement. It sounds like it's a loose end.
Let's
We
get on,
don't wanna
let's get
leave.
on record.
Yeah.
And,
No HOA in the last thing because it was rental. Now we
Right.
need an HOA because we've got property owners who are supposedly should be cooperating to maintain the common area. Yeah.
When we told them that the stormwater thing was old, outdated stormwater things.
This is just yesterday. I don't know, John
That's a big,
confirmed it this morning. Did you go back to him? Then
I haven't been able to get back to him.
just,
So,
we have not signed anything, and there's nothing there to be signed.
So how, Tim, I guess, when we look at what if there was no HOA and they're gonna put in a stormwater, the one that we approved with the last development, what was it?
well, the developer signed into an agreement, so whoever owns that facility, or that property there, I guess they're responsible for maintenance of it, but I'm not sure how that gets directed with common ground when you have, 26 homeowners there.
I mean, I don't know how. With townhomes, with shared walls, with shared roofs or so. You know, you've gotta have something, declaration of restrictions and covenants, something to apportion it, maybe not necessarily a
Usually
homeowner
better
association,
development.
but should.
Usually better developments with townhomes, the HOA takes care of the exterior.
Yes.
Fee. And then, you know, they take care of the roofs, they're on schedule for repair, they take care of the landscaping. And
And then
they take
they
care of
fight
siding
about
issues, things like that.
Later on, and then
Well,
that's
yeah.
who's
You
in
didn't do
charge.
my roof, you did them, it was, it should have been an assessment, no, it covered, I mean,
You guys were on the board, so you did yours
yeah,
first.
exactly.
Yeah, no,
It is,
that's a whole
Do we
area of property.
require Can we require an HOA?
no, not,
Right, so what is our
Form of-
mechanism for,
ownership, I mean, it's explanation, or at least, what explanation otherwise, they're all gonna be private with no HOA.
I mean, I always, typically I always ask for the HOA documents, this just got lost in the shuffle because of the change of venue, you might say. So there's a lot of things that weren't questioned and, you know, everybody's in a big rush to get this approved.
Well, I guess
Just good questions.
if you have 5 or 6 units in one building, you can drive through a lot of parts of town where they have row houses and you see that this one's
One's really
painted,
nice
there's,
and the other three aren't.
yeah, this one's great and these two are falling apart and, I guess, is there a risk that we end up with something like that if there's no
I
HOA?
assume there would be.
Can we stop that or not? Don't we have the power to stop that? I mean,
If you wouldn't have changed the ordinance, it wouldn't have been desirable to build that type of building.
Well, no, I mean, that's,
are we more worried about townhouses falling into disrepair than we are single family homes? Is this something that's unique to townhouses? Like, do we ask these questions when people are building single family homes?
The thing about a townhouse is that they can look, since they're regimented, it's obvious that some things are in disrepair and some things aren't. You know, if.
From one unit to the next?
Yeah, so if you get a house or a street with 10 houses on it, that, yeah, you may have a couple houses that don't look as pretty as the other ones, but it's not, it's noticeable. You know,
And has that been an issue?
it hasn't been an issue here yet. You know, I think we've gotten really lucky, especially with Hunters Point. Hunters Point, they really tried to maintain a decent plan. I expected that to actually really start turning out bad.
that's an HOA, right?
well, that's
That is
isn't that
a condo
PRD too?
association.
I mean, that's one where it's
That's a
like
condo.
each lot is
Just the house.
just a house, it's weird, but,
It's really odd.
Yeah.
And I think that HOA lets people like rent too.
Yeah.
You know, which is
Oh, yeah.
unusual in an HOA.
My son lives there, so.
It's very unusual.
So what is it we're getting at here? I guess is my question.
I think Tim's list of questions are pretty good. I think
Yeah.
that's pretty comprehensive. If we,
Agree.
however you want to divvy them up, but if we ask either, I think we get a lot of answers. I would add the stormwater to that too, and say, how we want to say that,
And I don't think Craig's gonna be here tonight, so he's gonna have people answering for him. I got a feeling.
yeah, well, and that's the thing, I mean, yes, we have the minutes record, but the approval, the motion, as Tim's staff report, it has, in Smith's report. You have time, so if it is, well, we want more time to look at it, we can update the report based on either statements they make, so that there can be conditions, and to Brian's, what is in our development agreement, we attach, the resolution that approved, this. We'll probably have to, so that's why we're gonna have to do an updated development agreement, because we don't have a resolution here, but that. The approval has a copy of Tim's staff report, Glenn Smith report, those are the conditions of approval, it's all in one place, and you're not going around looking at meeting minutes or otherwise. So you can have something to judge them by, but, just sort of promises out there, oh yeah, we'll change that, or yeah, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. Not documented anywhere except meeting minutes, and does not become part of it.
I think we'll be very good if there's any question to ask them to document it and take a look at it next month.
My preference, especially on this one, would be, as soon as we get the answers that we want, to say table it or whatever,
Absolutely.
let Tim adjust the staff report. And
Are we gonna try to present that list of questions here?
Well, I think what you need to do is, you know, take a look at them and what you're really truly concerned about, hit them with it. You know, just like your fruit things, poison, and hit them with 1, 2, 3, 4, and just tell them this is what we want.
2 weeks.
I can add those things into a staff report and give it to them after the meeting. And then they'll have to step up to the
Yeah.
plate and deliver it to us before the next meeting, and then we can.
Tim, what is the timeline, if we're required by? Do we have something where we have to get the stuff in by a certain
Now,
point?
the problem is everything should be so clean, there shouldn't be any patch and holes, so, today's the 19th, it's probably, we asked for revisions 14 days before the agenda meeting. And that's probably pretty close, it's probably like
That might not work,
tomorrow.
yeah. And, I mean, a third option, as we're talking about this, we'll have a planning commission meeting Tuesday before. When last time we went through, you know, the issues with the stormwater facility, we referred it back to the planning commission. I think we had to get consent to an extension of time as part of that. Could conceivably tell them, go back to the planning commission, and then we'll put you on the agenda for the next night. But you want another set of eyes. I don't know, I mean, the planning commission's already seen it, it might just be more of a teachable moment for later,
I
of
think
like,
planning
look,
commission's gonna
council.
be confused.
Yeah,
I-
this
I
one has
think that we
bounced
should
around
give
so
them
many times.
a little more time than we normally do, and hopefully we can get all the information to you by the next agenda meeting, if not for sure by the next.
So, yeah, give them till the
regular meeting, and
31st.
We'll get that to you before, you know, in advance.
Look, to your point, you said, how do you want to divvy up the questions? I think there's almost 12 here. I think everybody, if people try
Should
to
be
ask
like-
2, and, you know, make sure you cross them off the list, and somebody else can ask the other 2, just to break up the amount. If you want, I mean, if everybody's good, it's good.
Yeah, it's not all sweet.
Yeah.
It's up to you. I'm looking at the email here.
It looks like our next. Specific.
Well, yeah, and you know, if you can't make it, we ask you for an extension of time.
Or,
If it's not looking good for him, I can ask him for an extension of time, and if we don't get it, the night of the meeting, we can just not be available.
There's someone is coming here tonight who can answer questions.
we told them
I'm
to.
assuming, I told him to be here and ready, with a lot of questions.
All right, well, I'm curious what happens if it's a no show. How do we do that for our questions?
Send them the questions.
I
Okay.
mean, at this point, you know, table it,
Okay. Just to make sure. I understand.
yeah, because you still have time, you want to get it to April. Table with the direction to him to update his staff report or otherwise communicate to get answers.
Is the 31st reasonable? It's, last day of the month.
Yeah, I mean,
I know our packets are printed, or assembled before that, but
the problem is the design of the building is on the builder, and Craig isn't driving that, so. You know, there's more than his decision gonna be here, and these are probably builders that don't get out of the box too much, so when they have a product that they open the door and pour it out, say, here's what we got. They're not designing specifically every lot, you know, that they build on. It's everybody's a pour out of the door kind of thing. There's no architectural thought in anything, so, you know, I don't know how this is gonna go, I'm assuming that they're not gonna be here even 30 days if they want to start the project.
okay.
So
I would say.
Well, Tim, what you're telling us here is that perhaps we, not specific to this project, but almost anything that has 2 buildings, that are 2 or more buildings that share a common wall,
furthermore.
3 of them.
Oh, duplexes are included. That's right.
Duplexes included, I mean, let's say you put them on a separate piece of property and your neighbor lets his go down, get run down, but you're keeping yours pristine. I don't know, maybe you're, I don't know if it's.
Fortunately, people aren't throwing garbage because property values are too high. So,
But I mean, for the future, should we look at having a requirement that there be an HOA that gives some
If we can.
protection?
We're getting into ownership issues or responsibilities. I mean, I can't remember, and you were saying, we can tell them that part of the requirement is to explain how, you know, have common amenities or common areas, how they can be maintained. Is it a homeowners association, private?
And that's why we didn't want stuff like potlucks and stuff, because even though young people may want it, in 20 years, they're not gonna be young anymore, and their kids are gonna be hanging out there smoking cigarettes and causing trouble.
Instead of requiring HOAs to enforce this, can't we just require that people upkeep it in our ordinances?
We do, I mean, we have property maintenance
Yeah.
code provisions, you know, something's.
I guess what, I'm not understanding what problem it is we're trying to solve with trying to make sure there's an HOA enforcing that they're kept up if we already have ordinances that are required.
Well, we do have ordinances. The problem is our ordinance, you know, what we can actually do is tell them we don't want to, we can't tell them what color to paint them, but we can direct them on a house to be painted, I think, according to the ordinances, you know, heavier colors are lower, lighter colors are higher, things like that. But if that gets out of sequence, you know, 5 years from now, because, you know, if somebody wants to paint their house pink and green, and these people that want to leave it standard, and, you know, well, one guy isn't painting them at all, and, I mean, we do have codes for that, but the changes, you know, if there's no roles, then there's no, you know, continuity.
That would be, I mean, these provisions for multifamily are in the zoning ordinance, and if somebody like comes along and says, okay, I'm gonna take off this area, or I'm gonna put in a bigger garage door, do something in violation of that, that's potential enforcement action through zoning, enforcement notice, appeal to the zoning hearing board, them to say, oh, nope, I'm still in compliance, because aesthetic, et cetera. So it's still there in the future to be applied. It's a bit different than subdivision land development. You know, it's approved, the plan's approved, it's recorded, it's built, that's it.
I mean, you can't, the ordinances can't protect you from everything, and the state cuts us off at certain points, so, you know, we can just try to do the best we can to make things, move forward in a manner that we're looking for. You know, all you can do is ask, and if they give it to you, fine. If there's something you can't make them do, then, and they don't want to do it, if you've asked, then, I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but it could certainly, you know,
Push more.
yeah, make it sound, you know, we would like to take a look at your HOA documents. We haven't seen any of them, or if not, could you give them to us when they are prepared before we approve this? Doesn't mean that you're saying no, but you're asking. You can ask for anything.
And we have done, you know, review and recommendations of HOA documents that, you know, those usually aren't put together until 6 months from now or anything. So I want to, you know, look for all that to be in hand before you vote and approve, but it could be a condition of, you know, review and follow recommendations and borough enforcement actions in the HOA documents. But we don't even know. Do they have, are they planning to have an HOA?
Well, a lot of our developments that are freestanding and single family homes, they put in the detention facility. We end up maintaining that in the future as we're learning.
And we should, because we're gonna get stuck with whether they do it or not. Now, this one here that they're building goes underground, and it's kind of out of our scope a little bit, and I think that's why you guys.
But if
We're still gonna end up maintaining it.
if the street's dedicated and all that, and we maintain the street and it's all individual lots, we will be maintaining that at some point in the future.
I would hope not, because that's not what.
That's not what we said.
Right, so,
We said they haven't maintained it.
Okay.
but if they don't
It's on that
maintain
underground
it,
facility.
you know, what the penalty will be, I don't know, but we will be stuck.
So is that just infer there has to be an HOA or somebody in charge of that, or some funds set aside, or how's that? I guess that's the question. That's the question.
For that.
I think we
We
can. I mean,
Yeah, I
the
wrote.
other places do, and I can't remember back
In
when
the
we
bond,
updated the stormwater to acknowledge that you could have underground facilities. I do remember us talking about, there are other ones, yeah, there's like a long-term maintenance fee that you're gonna build it, we'll inspect it, we'll release it, but then, you know, you're not gonna give us an 18-month maintenance bond for that, you're gonna give us a long-term one. You know, so if we do have to do something significant 20 years from now, you have given us $10,000 and we just set an interest bearing account, we can use that. It might not approximate the number, but that's how other municipalities that say we'll take it over initially and not wait until it fails, have to come in later.
Yeah, I believe this underground facility, when it was originally presented a year ago, or a year and a half ago. Yeah, the engineer was there, and you know, I did ask a question, what's the longevity of these underground tanks? Now, it says 50 years is what it's like rated, but the engineer did say realistically it's 25. It didn't seem like we have a mechanism to have some sort of like perpetual bond to like take care of and deal with this. So I'm not sure what our limits are, but either way, we should ask a question. Yeah, what is the plan? Maybe the HOA typically would do that. As a borough doesn't really deal with this concept.
Well, that's a question,
Yeah.
definitely a question. I mean, I think it is one of the questions, here, so I just wanna,
Yeah, I see it.
I guess Tim, you're right about one thing, that we did revert back to what was previous. This is just a change to what was previously approved. It wasn't, but the fact that they want, if they do want to go to freestanding, no HOA, that's a change for what was originally approved as well, correct?
Well, the HOA, there was no HOA originally because it was corporate owned.
Oh, just the whole lot.
It was, yeah, it was corporation that was rented out, right? That's what they said. Which
But
that's
that's
an
not
HOA.
the
that's-
intent here, so the intent here is to put each structure on its own lot.
That's true.
It's why I'm not the one point. Somebody think for me. If that's the case.
I think there's just so many plans out there, I think we could go on them.
Any other questions on this, or we're just gonna go down the list? Yeah, okay. Anything else?
I was just reading our 2023 ordinance on underground detention facilities, and although we discussed it does not, that we included a long-term maintenance fee as part of that. It's the unsigned version.
Yeah.
No, so that's about it.
Okay, renewing discussion items? Nope. Nope. Okay, of course, council meeting, first.
Nothing.
I'm good.
Good, okay, yeah, I don't really have anything here, do we want to go to the session? Yeah, we do, okay, cool, thanks, everyone. See you after.